Hello everybody. Today we're going to take a very quick look on the subject of racism as it relates to the Bible. Now, I've already done a pretty comprehensive video going through many verses in the Bible, Old Testament and New Testament, that allude to slavery. As you can see on your timeline and in the media, on the internet and all over, there are a lot of woke people, as they call themselves, that love to attack the Bible, they love to attack Christianity, and they would make the arguments that within the past the Bible was used to speak against interracial marriages, or the Bible was used to justify slavery and things of that nature. But what I'm going to do today is make the argument that the Bible cannot possibly justify racism. I'm going to argue that if you believe in God, if you believe in the God of the Bible, that is antithetical to any notion having to do with racism. I want us to take a look at this verse, which is found within the New Testament. This is an excerpt from a sermon preached by Paul to the Greeks, found in Acts chapter 17. The Bible says, God that made the world and all things therein, seeing that he is Lord of heaven and earth, dwelleth not in temples with hands. Now it's interesting that, in case you ever wonder, why do I talk about the book of Genesis so much? Why do I always go back to Genesis and the creation story? That's because, once again, I cannot underscore this enough. If you believe in Genesis, and if you understand Genesis chapter 1 and the first few chapters of Genesis, and if you recognize that God is the creator of heaven and earth and mankind, then everything else in life will pretty much fall into place and make sense to you. In Paul's sermon to the Greeks, who don't even believe in the Bible, God here is referred to as God who made the world and all things therein. See, the Greeks believed in mythology and they believed in many gods. But Paul is saying to them, no, there's one God, and our God, the God of Scriptures, he made the world and all things therein. Also, that's why I'm very big on the Sabbath day. If you ever wonder, why do I talk about the fourth commandment and the Sabbath day so much? It's because it is the commandment, the only one that starts with the word remember, and it is the commandment that reminds us that God is the creator of heaven, of earth, and all that is therein. He created the earth in 6 literal days, rested on the 7th. So the God that we worship as Christians is oftentimes in the Bible identified as the God who created the heaven and the earth. God that made the world and all things therein, seeing that he is Lord of heaven and earth, dwelleth not in temples made with hands. Neither is worshipped with men's hands as though he needed anything. Our God doesn't need anything from us. Neither is worshipped with men's hands as though he needed anything, seeing he giveth to all life. Human beings, animals, insects, plants, trees, everything that hath breath receives breath from God who made heaven and earth. And just think about throughout the day how many times you inhale and exhale. You realize that every time you take a breath and you exhale, you realize that that's God giving you breath second by second. And if you think God hasn't given you anything, every time you do this, it's like God having a pocket of air and saying, here, here, here. Hundreds and thousands of times throughout the day, God has given you the breath of life. So every time your lungs inhale air and exhale air, God, who created the heaven and the earth, is giving you the breath of life. So the Bible says, seeing he giveth to all life and breath and all things, and hath made of one blood all nations of men for to dwell on all the face of the earth, and hath determined the times before appointed and the bounds of their habitation. So God, who created all humankind, used one blood to make all nations. And to any of the extreme feminists who are easily triggered, in ancient times, it was very common for people, even within the last, up until a few decades ago, it was very, very common in literature for people to use the word man or men to simply refer to mankind. All right? That's why we use the term mankind or humans. It means men and women alike. All right? But God used one blood to make all nations. So if God used one blood to make all nations, then that would inherently mean that a Christian cannot be racist. If God used one blood to make the Australian and the European and the African and the American and the Caribbean, if God used one blood to make all of these different nations, then it is impossible for you to have any racist views. If you believe that God created you, and if God made this universe, and God made all of mankind, you are not supposed to be racist. And this goes to both the white man as well as the black man alike, because there is a movement of some Afrocentrists who believe that black people are gods. No, black people are not gods, and white people are not gods. White people are not devils either. And there is no nation, there is no civilization, there is no race, there is no ethnicity that exists that is of any less importance or less worth in the eyes of God. God made one blood all nations of men to dwell on the face of the earth. I want to give you another verse. Romans chapter 10 and verse 20. The Bible says, "For there is no difference between the Greek and the Jew. For the same Lord over all is rich unto all that call upon him." There is no difference between the Jew and between the Greek. The type of animosity that you're seeing today and you're hearing about today on your timeline and in the media about white versus black, or about nationalists versus immigrants, or whatever type of ethnic or racial tensions there are in our country and around the world, there was that similar animosity between the Jew and between the Greek during the time of the New Testament. That same sort of racism that exists today existed also in the past. And this verse right here in Romans chapter 10, Paul is unambiguously, unequivocally saying that there is no difference in the eyes of God between the Jew and between the Greek. And you can replace the word Jew and replace the word Greek with any ethnicity and any race, and this verse reigns supreme. God does not see a difference between the races of people. Now, very quickly, there are several different blood types that scientists have put together. And the most common around the world being O, and the least common being AB negative specifically. But regardless of what your race or ethnicity or gender is, if you have any of these blood types, you are able to give to anybody else who has these blood types as well. If you are a O negative blood type, you can give to anybody of any blood type. If you are a AB positive blood type, you can receive blood from any other of the types. Now, I think one of the reasons why we have various blood types is because God wanted to illustrate to us that race and ethnicity are totally meaningless. Racism is unbiblical. If you are a white person and your blood type is B+, that means you can give to the Aboriginal, you can give to a black man, you can give to a Latino man, you can give to any one of these races who has B+ or AB+. If you are a Latino person and you have an AB negative, you can give to a white person or any other race who has the AB positive or the AB negative blood type. The race, the skin color that you have is totally meaningless, because these blood types over here can give to these blood types over here, and they can receive from these blood types over here, regardless of which country you're born in, and regardless of what shade of brown you are. And by the way, in case many of you weren't already aware of this, I don't even believe there's anything such as a white person or a black person. We're all brown, all right? Some of us are very dark brown, and some of us are very light brown, but we're all various shades of brown. The Bible says in Genesis chapter 2 that Adam was formed from the dust of the ground. And the word Adam means ruddy or red. Adam was the color of dirt. It was some sort of reddish, brownish dirt. And every nation you have, whether you live in the Caucasus Mountains or you live in the Sahara Desert, whether you live by the equator or in the North Pole or South Pole, we are all various shades of brown. But God used one type of blood. He used one blood to create all nations of men and women. And if we cut, we all bleed. And if you have blood flowing through your veins, that means you are created in the image of God. So if you are a believer in the Bible and if you are a believer in God, it is antithetical. It is opposite. It is totally adverse. It is totally contradictory for you to both believe in God as well as believe in the concept of racism. All men are created equal by God. All women are created equal by God. Thank you so much for joining me. And again, if you want to check out more of my other videos and posts having to do with the Bible, simply search for hashtag Reid Ministries, and you'll see all of my posts and my videos. And let me know your comments below. And if there are any other topics you guys want me to delve into, simply send me a private message or post on my page or post below this video, and I'll be happy to explore those topics with you. Thank you so much for your time. Enjoy your day.